We are live, ladies and gentlemen. You're once again welcome to the King Dems Podcast. And today I have with me a very important guest. He's a legal practitioner. I call him Sage, but his government name is Oluwaseun Ayansola. How are you, Sage?
Hey, good. Very honored and excited to be here. And we go way back, so it's great
Of
to.
the greatest Ife.
It's great, man, and it's great to reconnect with you. I was just talking about that actually. So it's been a long time, yeah.
Wow. Then, your own story has been inspirational. It is a classic example of a transformational story, you know,
Mm.
from being a law student, at the prestigious Great Ife to becoming, a global level finance lawyer. So your journey from Great Ife, that is Obafemi Awolowo University, to Oxford University,
Yeah,
another, would I say, highly esteemed, prestigious, school at the global level, say the elite of the elite, right? So
well,
that journey,
that's what they say.
that journey is remarkable, brother, right?
Yeah,
So
humbled. Yeah,
yeah, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful to God
yeah,
for that, for what you've been able to achieve. Looking at us, coming together, and of course we shared similar, would I say, institutional affiliations. I think you did work at PwC as well.
yeah. I
I think
did.
around the same time I was working there or something
Oh,
at the
oh
Lagos
wow.
office. Yeah, yeah. I
Oh
was at
wow.
the Abuja office.
Right. My stint was obviously it was short because
Yeah.
but yeah, we'll get into the details. But if you,
So my first question to you is, what
yeah,
has, been the biggest mindset shift that has helped you to transition from, being a top student in Nigeria to being a global level finance lawyer?
that's a really good question. It's funny, but it goes way back, and I remember it very vividly. Um, it was in 500 level, or at the
Mm,
end of 400 level, while we're still in Ife, in OAU actually. And I like the way you framed it because my realization at the time was that I had an epiphany that
mm.
I was a local champion.
Right. Ah,
You know,
it's interesting. We actually share a lot in common, right?
right?
It's really, really interesting. I think I did tell somebody at some point, or maybe I think during my interview with KPMG UK, I think I told the
Mm,
partner, I said something about me. I will never be in any profession wherein I don't see the pathway to get to the top. And
yeah.
I like to be a global champion. I hate to be a
Hmm.
local champion. And something
Yeah.
that, we share even right from our days in Great Ife.
Indeed.
And I think we were connected by a mutual friend, Supreme Barrister.
Yes. Yeah. And we were very close. And in fact, so on that point about that realization that
Mhm,
because as a student, right, I was never really just about like the grades.
mhm,
I'd always wanted to because I felt like those 5 years, very finite time, but there were infinite opportunities
mhm,
locked into those 5 years. And
mm,
it was like your incubation period. That was how I saw it. So
mhm,
in 400 level, I was scrolling through Instagram. It's funny. Then I came across this lady, final year student at Babcock. I think she was 19 or something, and she was running for the, I think, AU Ambassador for Peace. I
mm,
remember very, very vividly. And she was also the founder of a non-governmental organization, which at the time had the attention of the United Nations, the African Union, and this was somebody who was 19 in our final year, was running for ambassador for peace. I was just like, oh my God.
What do I do with my life?
And I think that was the first shift. So once I realized that, it became important to me to be locally schooled but globally minded.
Operate
So
local, but think global.
exactly. Exactly. And just first of all, it's that, and you know what people say, I'm Yoruba, like they say, it's whenever you wake up, that's your morning. So 400 level was my morning. I really woke up. And then throughout that break, I was really just researching international opportunities. So, and it was simply like, it was a Google search. Opportunities for, do you get what I mean? It was like opportunities for lawyers in the United Kingdom, anywhere, like, global opportunities for this. And believe me or not, just also, I mean, if you believe in like the law of attraction, and because in that moment, my realization, had opened to that global opportunity, I started attracting that same vibration as well. And then randomly, this senior of mine who graduated from IFE was already working in the UK at a firm called Obafemi Awolowo, had reached out to us, and I was, the president of the Routing Society at my uni at IFE. And he was like, oh, there's an opportunity. It's the first time they're inviting a Nigerian university to represent Nigeria at this international competition.
Oh, wow.
And we have to we have to prepare our deck, our negotiation. It was a negotiation competition, and it was in India. And between when I made that decision and the end of that year, we were on our way to Delhi, doing an international competition. By April of the following year, I was on my way to New York, for an international law conference, and then we went to law school. I was in, another international. Once that mindset shifted, I just, everything, and then it becomes more achievable because now your consciousness is open to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I started looking out for and searching out more intentionally, right? Rather than like letting things happen, I was deliberately searching out Nigerians with a very similar background who've also gone on to do the things that I am now hoping to do. So I remember around the time I also just changed my Instagram name from Sage to the Sage of Oxford.
Wow.
Because
Speaking
there was
it into existence.
And that's as far back as 2017 or around the time. And that's because I stumbled on this guy on YouTube, or not on YouTube, sorry, on LinkedIn, who went to Lagos State University, made it 2-1, So it wasn't even because he was like the very first person to have a 5.0 CGPA, Do you see what I mean? So it made the dream even very achievable. Someone who looks like me, went to the same, similar university as me, studied law. At the time, he did the same program that I eventually did at Oxford. He was doing the MSc in Law and Finance. And I didn't even know that the program existed. So speaking about, mentoring from a distance. So those two events, were really the events that shaped my mindset. First lady on, Instagram, and then who made me realize you can be going after these international opportunities. And then this other person with a similar background who was, a master's student at Oxford, and then went on to join a law firm in London as well. So there was already like a blueprint to follow. So you just have to like search out these people, and it really just gives you that audacity to dream, you see. So, but just to wrap it up,
Oh, wow. There's a lot to unpack, right? But given the fact that we share, would I say, quite some history now, it's been a while since we left our great IFE. But as you were speaking, I just remembered how Barrister Supreme introduced me to you.
Yeah.
He's really proud of you, by the way, and
proud of you too, man.
Yeah,
Great guy.
he was like, oh, I have this guy in my class. I'm sure you're gonna like him.
Classic.
Yeah,
Supreme.
yeah. And then I can remember vividly because myself and Supreme, we were roommates, right?
Right.
And Supreme was always like, oh, yeah, you're gonna like him. He's a brilliant guy. He's a very brilliant guy like yourself. And I'm like, okay, like, why are you selling this guy? And why are you massaging my own ego as well, right?
Oh no, he saw something that, well, at the time, we couldn't see, but I guess it was meant to be for sure. But yeah, Supreme is great guy.
But you know something? I
Yeah.
was speaking with somebody earlier today,
Mm.
and I was telling them how I very, very much appreciate the university I attended, because some universities are probably like universities of technology,
Right.
universities of medicine, universities of peculiar or specific fields. But we went to a multidisciplinary university.
Yeah. Indeed.
I was able to connect with, great minds, great individuals, great personalities, great experts, right? In
Yeah.
different fields. Look at yourself, law. Even
Mm.
in terms of the entertainment industry, we have, quite a lot of guys, that are doing well
Yeah.
in music, in art and craft, in the movie
Yeah.
industry.
Fireboy,
Yeah,
and the rest of the
Fireboy,
guys.
Ashake, Check
Mm-hmm.
Boy. It's
Yeah.
really, really amazing to see what these guys have accomplished, right? But
Yeah.
some people might recognize the fact that I am quite versatile, vast, and they ask me, "Oh, you are meant to be a chartered accountant. Like, how do you know quite a lot about law? How do you know quite a lot about pharmacy? How do you know quite a lot about medicine?" But
Mm-hmm.
they don't realize that we went to school wherein your roommate could be a pharmacy student and
Yeah.
he is coming to revise and teaching you stuff in pharmacy. Your roommate is
That
probably
was
a
my.
doctor and
Yeah.
is teaching you stuff. Your roommate is probably an architect. And of course, we do
Yeah.
special electives as well, right?
Yeah.
And
From other
like,
faculties and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and pretty much our first year was not, focused on whatever we even came to study. You were like
Yeah.
doing electives. I did electives in psychology, political science.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
I found it annoying though. I'm like, let's just study this long. But yeah, no. But I'm sure
yeah,
it paid
it's
off.
made up, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would ask you,
Yeah.
the quality of the education that we we were privileged to obtain in Grady Fair, right? And the versatility and range that it's been able to afford us.
Mm.
Like, what is your take on it? Like, how much do you appreciate it? Do you think, they say hindsight is 2020, right?
Mm.
Do you think it was worth it, or do you think it was a waste of time?
Oh no, I think it was fantastic. Also, like you were just alluding to the fact that it's how the school was structured, and I think that framework must have been from the best institutions in the world, because Oxford was very similar. You went to your faculty, but then you share a college
Mhm,
with people from different disciplines.
mhm.
And at your junior common room or middle common room, so they call them MCR, and like you're basically chatting to the next guy who's doing a PhD in physics or something, So, and that cross pollination of ideas, really just helps you to become a well-rounded, valuable person to any organization that you find yourself. So that's one. But then there was also something that was very peculiar to Ife. Ife had a reputation of being one of like the most taxing, difficult institutions to get into.
But
So
yeah,
you have to
they
be
raised the
a
bar
local,
high.
exactly. So you have to be a local champion to even have the audacity in the first place to apply to the institution. So they,
I always say a local champion. I always say you have to be academically bright. It's
indeed,
just the
indeed.
facts.
So,
It's facts and stats. The
and
numbers
local,
tell it.
yeah, indeed. And local, I say local in the sense that from wherever you're coming from, you were the star boy of that place. So it's like a congregation of like star boy and girls, mixing. It's like
Best and brightest.
it's like the Champions League of best and brightest. So that in itself, there's so much value in that, So because you can impact passion and ambition,
Mhm.
that's something an individual must have naturally. So that is something that is not lacking in that institution. So And when you are around people who breed ambition, like it has a way of like just shaping you and affecting you. So I think I would even give more credit to the students than the institution itself.
Why?
Oh yeah, no, but because well, I mean the institution is the students who make Harvard, like the students.
Okay. So
Yeah,
stop there, right?
right. Go on, go on.
Speaking of Harvard,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I was going to ask you because
yeah.
somebody was in a conversation with me today, and
Mm-hmm,
it's kind of felt like I was bragging, right?
mm-hmm,
This person schooled in the UK, right?
right.
Went uni in the UK, and
Yeah,
the only foreign degree I have currently is
yeah.
my MBA, my Master's in Business Administration
Mm-hmm,
from a US
yeah,
based school.
right.
But I told this person I am highly educated, and then the person was like, "How do you mean you're highly educated?" I said, it is not an argument. Don't worry
Mm,
about it. When I tell you I'm
mm-hmm,
highly educated, I'm high. Just take it."
mm,
And they're asking me, "Oh, what university did you go to?" And
mm-hmm,
that was where Harvard came in. I said, I went to the
right.
Harvard of Nigeria. So, do you think that is fact or fiction?
I mean, I think I'm sure there are people who will disagree, but the truth is, it's the fact. It's the fact
Do you
that
think it's the Harvard or you think it's the MIT
oh well,
or
well,
the Stanford? What
I
is
think,
it,
I
bro?
think, I think for sure, OAU is, that institution, and in my sense, and it might be, it's just it has the model, of the best institutions in the world, full stop, right? So there's that. So, but yeah, like I think to wrap it up, I agree. The quality of the education is from,
Top
not just the
notch.
lecturers themselves, but from the students as well, and I think from the quality of the people of the
Mm-hmm.
student. I think, in fact, that is what sustains, that institution is keeping if anyone is starting a school or is an administrator, when you keep the entry criteria very
Mm-hmm.
high,
Mm-hmm.
you attract really talented students. And it's, yeah, I was having a random chat with a lecturer who came to Oxford for a talk. And he was like, as a teacher, he appreciates teaching in a top university because sometimes you're not really doing you're just teaching. You're not motivating the students. The students
Mm-hmm.
came ready-made. Well, they're motivated. They don't need you to motivate them.
Mm-hmm.
Without you, those guys are going to go on and be great people.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that as a teacher makes you even want to up your level every single time, right?
Mm-hmm. That's
So
very
that
true.
is like, that is what we, and people don't, so you have to give the students the credit. Like, the students are
Definitely.
they're just insane, and that's what you will find in every great institution. Because if the institution like prides itself as the best,
Mm-hmm.
best believe the best students from around the country will want to go there. That's how it works. I think that's my opinion.
That's I very much agree with you, right? So great institutions usually or typically would have great individuals, right?
Yeah,
Because it's a collective and individual game at the same time.
yeah,
So even in sports, in professional career, professional services, when you have the best of the best, it's just easier coaching them
yeah, indeed,
compared to having like a mid-range individuals, right? So, and of course, iron also sharpens iron.
indeed, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That I agree with that
when you're around
100%.
great minds, you get
Yeah.
more motivated.
Yeah.
So
I
that
used to say, yeah, I'm sorry to cut it. I say that great parenting saw me through secondary school, but great company, great friendships saw
mm-hmm,
me through university. Like,
mm-hmm,
just to your point about iron sharpening iron.
mm-hmm,
Some of the guys that I moved with, Supreme, Faith, and the rest of the guys,
mm-hmm,
they were some of the most ambitious people that I had
mm-hmm.
ever met. So even if I was dreaming small, like with guys like that around you, you just want to like, dream big. Like, in fact, you want to just set unrealistic goals because you're like, yeah, why not? So yeah, but yeah, for sure, I am definitely sharpened by.
Wow, really, really great to be in great company.
Hey, big man.
Great company. I can't overemphasize, my appreciation for that institution that's, we share that affiliation to. But, moving on to the world of career,
Right.
you have actually advised on multi-billion dollar transactions, from
That's correct.
energy to digital infrastructure. But can you recall your first high stakes deal? So what were the key lessons that you learned from that experience?
My very first, and the career defining deal was, believe it or not, it was when I was in Lagos at a law firm called Adequale.
Oh, wow. That's one of the top,
Indeed,
if you like, call it the
indeed.
big four of Nigeria, the lower firms.
100%. And that's what they call themselves. And I'm honestly very grateful for the kind of like mentors and lawyers that I worked with. And I think their work ethic, like definitely rubbed off on me, and it's basically carried me on even now that I work at a big law firm, city law firm in London. It's really that foundation that's carried me. So the best deal, for confidentiality's sake, but it was a very first gold mining project, in the country. And it was a Canadian sponsor, and, they had like DFI. DFI is a development financial institution or finance institution. And their goal really is to finance the development, and bridge that infrastructure gap on the continent, and we, why was it challenging and what was a big lesson? So the deal started in obviously 2019. Things were smooth, and then it continued on the 2020, and then COVID hit, and then COVID happened, right? So it was, so for sure, as a lawyer, it taught me, that you have to be able to adapt. You have to be solution oriented. So the laws were tested in many different ways. How do you sign documents, especially in Nigeria, where we were very pedantic on like signing instructions and like documents, and like, can meetings really, shall their meetings be held, virtually? The law was tested in all kinds of ways, and you have to think creatively around the
I
law
think out
to
of
be
the
able
box.
to, exactly, indeed, like, and to give some of like the best advice to your, because what your client cares about is closing that deal, right? And then they were like, obviously, like, it was also very interesting because it was, they had that first mover advantage. It was a first of its kind, type of deal. And, personally also helped me to manage. So when you do bilateral loans, which is between just one lender and a borrower, it's a bit more vanilla and more straightforward. But when you do a syndicated facility, which involves like a group of lenders, your project management skills is also tested. And if you're then the associate who is responsible for the deal, like the very first lesson that I learned is like, you have to understand sequence of the transaction. But the only way to be proactive as an associate is when you know what's next. So if you don't know what's next, you can't be proactive, And I was doing something at the time which I didn't realize what I was doing. You have to like be able to like create like a mind map of what the project is, and like, sub bubbles. And so if the sub bubble doesn't get completed, you don't unlock the next one. So before you can send out, execution versions, they have to be in a good form, corporate authorization have to be in place. So once you map it out like that, it's easier for you to like follow all the different aspects. But you have to first of all sit down and learn the sequence of transactions. So if you know the sequence of transactions, then you can always, even to your seniors, you're like, oh, now that we've sent out the first draft of the FA, this would be a great time to start, putting the security documents or package, and then obviously get a junior to maybe prepare the corporate authorization. But that's because you know what's next. And then you're like, just wanted to check that that's fine, and that's one thing. The other thing that I learned for sure is being solution oriented. And so when an issue comes up, rather than saying, this is the issue, what should I do? You should instead say, this is the issue. this is what I think we should do, but I thought I should check with you and, grateful for your thoughts, on what should happen. And then the person appreciates it more that you've thought about the issue and then you've offered some solution, and then they either agree completely or they agree with some modifications or they disagree. And then, but they appreciate that you've at least thought about the issue and you've, offered some solution. So it's all kinds of like, transactions. So imagine that was in fact the deal where I cut my teeth,
Proverbial teeth.
and that those lessons have really just carried me on, throughout my career.
So from what you have said so far, there is a lot to unpack, but I would like to summarize it, would I say concisely, or in bits of bullet points, from what I can pick that you said. So importantly, your project management skills,
indeed,
improved, right? Also, your knowledge and understanding of business combinations,
indeed,
right? Did improve, right? Because you have different business structures, you have different company structures, you have group models, you have parent companies, you have associates, you have subsidiaries. You need to understand the ownership structure and, of course, the legal structures behind these entities, right? Sometimes you have SPVs, right? You have joint ventures, executing projects. You need to understand, the business side, the financial side, and of course the legal side as well.
Yeah. And just to add to that, in order for you to be, and very important, for you to be proactive, because obviously every employer wants you to be proactive. In order for you to be proactive, you need to understand the sequence of the entire deal, so that when you know the sequence, then you know what's next. So only when you know what's next, you can be proactive.
Yeah, and I think to buttress your point, right? I'm trying to corroborate what you're saying, right? Because the next thing I was going to touch on was the proactive thing. But something I appreciate that you said is, being proactive, right? But also being creative and innovative.
Indeed.
Yeah, because being proactive without, your touch of ingenuity, your touch of, innovation, your touch of value adding orientation makes it sort of useless. And
absolutely.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah,
Well, straight from what you said.
Yeah, but absolutely right. Yeah, indeed.
It's really, really fantastic. And I hope that, especially young professionals that are watching or listening to this conversation are able to pick, the valuable nuggets that you drop in, because you are dropping hot bombs.
It's not hot bombs.
Educational hot bombs, bruv.
Indeed, like there is always, something, to learn and like to share, and like you have to like be attentive to, and then there's also something that, just in general, as a finance lawyer or as a young professional in corporate or in any profession, you have to prioritize learning. You have to fill that knowledge bucket. So, I was reading this book by Sid Bartlett.
Oh wow, that's one of my major influences. I appreciate his body of work. Yeah,
it's incredible. Indeed, yes. Thanks. And that book, it was talking about all the different buckets that you need to fill. You need to feel like, first of all, the knowledge bucket. You want to feel obviously like resources and connections and the rest of it. But he emphasized the point that all those other things can be taken away. Your connections, your resources. But knowledge is the only thing that if someone gives you, they can't take back. So if you realize that, like, that is the biggest job security that anyone can have. Because if you're extremely good at what you do, there is always going to be a way for you in the world, either in a company or on your own or like anywhere, because there is just so much value that you carry that, anyone can benefit from, and even if you weren't doing it to anyone, you can teach it. There's just so that knowledge, and someone always says that also the only type of assets that you can finance that someone can also not enforce against. So if you finance a house and you can't pay, someone can enforce their mortgage, they will seize the house back.
Mm-hmm.
But if you finance education, for instance, there is no way the lender can take you back. And I thought that's actually incredible. If you finance a car, they can enforce and take the car back. But if you finance education,
how do you want to come take the knowledge, bro?
I thought that is incredible. That is incredible, and it's going to be yours for life. It's going to be yours.
You know something, Sage. On a lighter note, I feel like you're entering my garden. You're trespassing into my garden, actually, right? Because many times in my life, right?
Yeah.
Especially in recent times, right? I've been in situations where an individual teaches me something. And I'll go out and utilize that knowledge to do something extraordinary or to make some money. And then the person that comes out like, you use that thing I taught you.
It is what it is. It is what it is. Like, yeah, exactly that. So I think
it is what it is.
No, for sure. Like, so I think it's extremely important. And first of all, there's also a philosophy to learning. You cannot learn with an end in view. You have to learn for the sake of learning itself. And once that's your mindset, you will never be discouraged that, but with all these things that I know, like, yes, you have to just realize that, like, there is no end to learning, and once and that's also something that you can, the other thing that is a corollary to that same philosophy is the fact that on a job, your employer can put a cap on your salary, but they cannot put a cap on how much you can learn from that job. No one can put a cap on. So someone can give you can be a personal assistant. That's the job description. But know what? It is your prerogative to only limit your learning to the job description. So you can be an associate and you're always punching above your weight class and learning, just as much as you can. And so the fact that, like, someone is called as giving you, and of course you can tell yourself that, I'm doing all this work and I'm not getting well compensated. But that's one way to look at it, right? But if you think about it from a knowledge perspective, you know that, like, but once I leave this job, if I want to interview for for a bigger role, it's not because I am misrepresenting. It's because I know that what I took out of the last role is more than the job description. You see what I mean? So yeah, it's just incredible. It's incredible.
What you've described is a situation that I also am concerned about, with our current crop of young professionals, right?
Right.
I see them putting the cart before the horse, right? So I speak of this, thing you're talking about as learning and earning, right? You need to learn before you earn. But a lot of people want to earn before they learn. That is not the right sequence. So if you learn, it expands your earning potentials. So you need to learn to earn. That's just the reality of life.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. But tell me, I mean, and we're just talking about how you're also that person who's very passionate about learning, and almost all your life, like, that I've known you, you're always, something new, like, you're always like, you're that person who's always muffing. You're like always muffing from one. Exactly. Like, I'm like, so no, but I'm actually curious. Like, so what is it like that, that's like, that keeps you on your toes, like just wanting to, like, let you learn, and, like, what's the philosophy behind it?
So for me, I think we'll need to go back in time, right? I grew up in a household where my parents did not, I don't know why, but they did not like us watching television.
Right.
So you have to go and ask my parents, like, Why? And my dad had this very massive library.
Mm,
So imagine as young as, I think I was like 5 years old. So my parents say, I think 5 or 6 when I started reading. So
right.
I think I was like some prodigious or somewhat, right? Because I remember I used to read, like different stuff because there was just so many
Yeah.
books
Yeah.
in the house. So they said I used to read around 5, 6. I'll try to confirm. And I remember, I think it started with the Bible. Yeah. So my parents used to like do this morning devotion, evening devotions, and
Yeah.
then, they will always like sort of force you to read, certain parts of the scriptures.
Mm,
Then I think I kind of got bored with the Old Testament. And since there was no TV to watch,
right. Right.
I started delving into some of my dad's books. I think he had books on philosophy, psychology. So imagine as a teenager, before we even got into grade affair, I was reading some books, old literature from the likes of Immanuel Kant, the likes of Bertrand Russell. I think
Mm,
you
those
remember,
philosophers.
did
Yeah.
Jingo teach you
Oh, yeah, I
in
did.
OU? Yeah,
Philosophy.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so I think he
101, 101,
yeah
105.
104.
Well, so we did the amphitheater one with you,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah. So the amphitheater one was 101 and 104.
Yeah.
104 was the second
Actually,
semester. Yeah.
no, I think he probably made an appearance, but I think Jingo at the time, I think he'd left it to UI or something. But yeah, but I did
Okay.
philosophy. Yeah, but
I
I
think
did philosophy.
my set was the last one he taught fully
I think
because
so. I
I was
think
one
so.
year ahead of you, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. I think so. But I did philosophy, so I'm familiar with Kant and Russell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the interesting thing,
Mhm.
Jingo actually taught my father. Well, my father was
So
in university.
he went to IFE as well. Right.
But he left Ife and went to UI
Mm-hmm.
to finish. So, like, there's this constant debate in my household that, guy, you couldn't stand the heat in Ife, so you ran to
See,
UI.
oh no.
And then he's
So
always like, oh, OAU is the juvenile university, UI is, the first. I'm like, bruv.
he actually started in IFE and went to
Yeah,
UI.
yeah, he that crossed over to you. I'm
No.
like,
Popsy,
guy.
why Popsy, bro?
I'm
Like, what's
like,
that?
I'm like, AU is
What's
a
that?
school for the intellectual gangsters. Take it or
Hey.
leave it.
Well, he couldn't take the hit.
If you can't take the heat, then you get out of the
Yeah.
kitchen, bro.
My, oh my.
I know he will argue to the death,
Of course.
but I'm not concerned.
Yeah.
If you
But
don't
no,
get
you
evidence, you
are.
get split
I have.
tire.
I know. I know. I have so much respect for UI as well,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
definitely.
Yeah.
They are top, level intellectuals, right? They've
Yeah.
produced like very, very great individuals. But I
Yeah.
wonder why they always seek that rivalry with us.
Mm-hmm.
We say of the greatest Ife, and then they say their greatest UIs. Like, why? Why do we always have to use the same
Slogans. Yeah.
slogans,
Yeah.
right? But
Right.
leave that alone, right? So the earliest memory of myself is curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
So just reading, reading, reading. So it just goes back to when I was a child, right? I was always a nerd, so I was just exposed to so much. And the thing with knowledge, especially the social sciences,
Yeah.
is that the social sciences are interconnected.
Yeah.
Sociology is connected to anthropology. Psychology and sociology are interrelated.
Yeah.
Political science has, some synchronizations with economics. And then it just led me into this web, this rabbit hole of constantly trying to find out more, find out more, find out more. And the
Indeed.
sad thing is, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Indeed. There is no end to it. There is absolutely no end to it.
So, and like for me, I love adventure. So
Yeah.
I think I kind of loved geography.
Mm.
So yeah, I started reading like a lot on geography, history,
Yeah.
and I always had this vision of traveling around the world.
Yeah.
So in order for you to travel around the world, you need to
Mm-hmm.
find a way to do something that can at least earn you the funds.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I think pretty much that's is what like really fueled that constant learning. And like you said before we
Yeah.
started the podcast, right? When I
Yeah.
was, in Abuja, I was a lecturer. for professional students, right? And at some point, I did have an A in my what's called research work in IFE. So, like he said, education has always been my side hustle.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, at some point, I used to write
Yeah, I
assignments,
mean, yeah,
essays for students in foreign universities, like crazy. And I did
yeah,
do some Ivy League, schools.
as well.
Let's keep
Yeah,
it
so
confidential.
you know, you know, you know,
So basically, you just want to keep learning. I'm just going to the big four as well, right?
yeah,
You have to keep learning, have to keep learning. But I've always had this passion for communication, broadcasting,
mm,
but I did not have that formal learning in it. So I
yeah,
did make friends with some broadcaster. That was my church member, Ayo Jurungbe, a very fantastic guy. He has a master's in language arts from UI.
I
So
see.
I guy actually did mentor
Mm-hmm,
me. So like
mm-hmm,
he taught me a lot, and I did read a lot of books in
yeah,
communication,
right.
like Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends, Influence People, Art of Public Speaking. So
Mm-hmm,
when you don't have a degree in something, but you want to make something out of it, you would
yeah,
go out to get like the elite level books, in the global space, so that
yeah,
you can, hang with the global champions. And of
yeah,
course, something you and me share is we don't like to be local champions, we like to be global
indeed,
champions. And of course,
indeed,
podcast and space, right? It's
yeah,
not just about talking, there's a lot that goes in behind the scenes, the use of
yeah.
AI,
Content, yeah,
yeah, the use of AI, the use of tech resources.
right,
So I just don't know. I've just been on this constant, need to learn
yeah.
all my life. I hope the rambles I've made have
No,
actually
no,
made you to maybe
that,
identify some trend
oh, no, no, no,
about like.
absolutely. Yeah, no, no, and I think indeed it just never stops, like you were
Mhm,
saying. And once you have that hunger, it's insatiable, you know.
mhm.
So once you want, it's such an insatiable hunger, but it's the right mindset for anyone who's trying to achieve anything in life, whether in corporate or outside of it, or whether you're a business owner. You just have to like keep learning. Yeah, that's what
Mhm.
I'd say.
Yeah, and I see. I call myself a nerd. I don't know if you call yourself a nerd because
No, I'm not one of you.
so the thing is, okay, let's define who a nerd is, because I think
Right.
because of that, would I say bad image, right?
Mm,
That people associate with nerds, that these guys are socially awkward individuals. But
yeah.
if we were to draw the dictionary meaning of a nerd, let me try to call up the dictionary meaning of what a nerd is. Nerd meaning, okay, let's see. It says a person who is extremely enthusiastic and knowledgeable about a particular subject, especially one of specialist or niche interest. Tell me,
Mm. I
where's the
mean, no,
lie?
no, no, that
Are
was
you not a nerd?
no, I mean, I just, no, that's a joke, but yeah, no, in general, like, I enjoy learning, like you
Mhm.
said, for sure. Yeah, certainly, certainly. Yeah,
And of course,
yeah.
you being the deniable nerd, right? So what would you say like inspired your own specialization in project finance, right? And like how did you navigate yourself into this niche area? So niche
That's a,
again, nerd.
that's a very, very good point. Right. Okay, fine. Like Nigerians say, you've caught me.
You don't catch me, you don't catch me.
No, no, no. It's a good question, and in fact, I get asked that by by the trainees, at my current office, just by like mentees in general, because now there seems to be like a greater, like there's a trend,
Mhm,
for people to be specialists.
mhm,
It seems to be more trendy, and for you to be very specialist. But I think I didn't start out. Not I think I certainly didn't start out very specialist.
mm.
And I would recommend that when you're just starting out your career, the fact that you enjoy studying a subject does not mean you enjoy practicing it. So,
Mhm.
so how did I
Exactly.
get into? How did
Please,
I get
please,
into?
can you repeat that? Can you repeat
Oh
that
yeah.
again? Okay,
So the
I
fact
need
that
to
you,
clip. I need to clip this. I was giving somebody career advice
mhm,
yesterday,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and I said the same exact thing you said. I
Yeah, the
wonder,
fact that
I wonder why you and me are like minded.
no, for
Now,
sure, like
at the end of
yeah,
this pod, we need to call Supreme and thank him again for
yeah,
introducing us
absolutely,
to. I remember
absolutely,
vividly, like daylight. Supreme was
yeah.
telling me, "You will like this guy. He's a guy like you."
And
I don't know
Supreme
what
is
he told you.
a man of
That
is a man of
like,
foresight.
oh, what? Like, who is
Yeah,
this
no,
person
but
that is like me? You want to introduce me
oh
to?
no, indeed, like and in fact,
That
so
is a
how did
thing.
I, I am going to be as open-minded at the start of my career as possible.
Mhm.
Between law school, between when we graduated from IFE in 500 level and law school, we had
Mhm.
about 9 months,
Mhm.
because OAU sometimes has a demonic calendar because of like strikes and the rest of it. So
You only know where
we
you're coming.
couldn't,
You don't know where you're
you
going.
know, we didn't go to law school, until the year after. So I obviously anticipated that I was going to have that gap year, almost a mandatory gap year. And I was like, oh, so what am I going to do with this? So I started applying to uh, top law firms. At this time, I already made my resolve to be locally schooled and
Yeah.
globally
By the
minded.
way, you did finish with the first class, and
I did, I did, and
that's a
and
big
that
up.
helped. That helped a bit.
Yeah, it is
I'm
an
sure, I'm
unfair
sure,
advantage.
sure the first class didn't sit, but yeah. So,
Uh-huh.
but aside the first class for sure, and I think there's so many of my mentees now who didn't actually make a first class
I
because
did not make a
they
first class.
and once
I
you have
made a
that,
2-1, bro.
and you worked at this same organization that I'm about to list. So I started sending out my CVs, and one thing that I would advise anyone who's listening is starting out early was a game changer. So I started out 1 year in advance to when I needed to fill those slots. So I was applying in 2017 for internships in 2018.
Mm.
And once I got like a positive response from a company and they come back and say, oh, so when would you like to start? I just lined them up. So if I already had something for February, I would say, okay, I'm happy to start in March. And so I said I had like an internship for every month until October or November when I started law school. So my very first one was PwC. So
Oh,
once I left
wow.
IFE, did PwC tax for about 3 months or thereabout. And then did my internship with the Africa Finance Corporation,
You're
which
in
was a
PwC in
fantastic.
2018?
Exactly. Yeah, it
Oh,
was in
what
2018
time in
actually.
2018? What time in
So
2018?
it was between February and March or April,
Okay.
thereabout. So did that graduate and it was meant to be a year long internship, but I decided that what, and back to our point, there's no how I'm going to know what I want to do
Mm.
certainly until I have tried at
Test the
least
waters.
experience.
Test the waters.
Exactly. And so if we take a step back, PwC is not a law firm.
Mm-hmm.
It's a consulting firm, advisory. So I did that. I did AFC, which is a bank. I did RMB, which is an investment bank. I did the NSC, Nigerian Stock Exchange, which is a stock exchange.
Regulatory.
I and then I wrapped it up with law firms. So after you know experiencing life either as a lawyer or as an investment banker, and then also wrapping it up with a law firm, I decided that what. So first, it was about the career options. Also, the fact that I studied law, I didn't want to condemn myself to a life of a lawyer. I thought if I found investment banking more interesting, I would have been happy to switch careers completely.
Mm-hmm.
But then I thought that what, I want to be in fact, and my decision to becoming a lawyer was the very one that shaped it was at the development bank. And at the development bank, and that's why that I currently do. So they will finance development of countries. So they will finance a country that is trying to build infrastructure, roads, public schools, and the rest of it. And the fact that that would have been my job, I would have done banking anyway. But that development aspect or perspective to it, or tweak, to it, made it a bit more impactful. because it felt like we were doing I was doing some good in the world, So it just wasn't, about making money, but it was actually, trying to direct finance to the countries that actually need it, So that was something, it sparked something in me. But even then, I didn't just run up to then be a project finance lawyer. So when I left law school and joined my firm, I was still open-minded and joined the generalist team, and I did banking and finance in general without specializing. And what that does for you is that it makes you just a well-rounded lawyer, and you're able to provide, a more comprehensive advice to your client. So starting out more generalist, and then once you've, done the rounds, it's like a pyramid. So you start at the base, you're, trying to soak in as much as you want. But as you advance in your career, it gets narrower. So I started specializing on my way up. So once I did that for 3 years, and then I did my master, which was in law and finance, then I transitioned into a project finance role, which is then more special. So how did I get here? I got here, one, weeding out, so do I want to even be a lawyer in the first place? So I tested the waters, like you did, to borrow your phrase, and then said, I actually I enjoyed my law internship so much. I know for sure I want to be a lawyer. But what type of law? I was like, okay, so I kind of enjoyed working in the bank, but maybe just not as an investment banker. So I like what they're doing, but I want to do it from a different perspective. So I want to do finance law. So that, so the other thing I say all the time is that an internship may not help you to know what you want to do, but it will help you to know what you don't want to do. So that's where
reverse psychology.
That's where it helps you to narrow down your focus until you land on goal, basically. So yeah, so that was how I did it, and I think it's very practical, if you ask.
Yeah, I appreciate the insights that you shared, and for me, I think I have spent, or I did spend, would I say, about 6 years of my career with the big four accounting firms, two of them, and I would agree with you when it comes to the value that comes with starting with being a generalist before proceeding to becoming a specialist. And a lot of times you really don't know the value add you have in terms of capabilities, transferable skill sets, competences, right, that you've acquired over time, also by working with cross-functional teams. Right? And these are the opportunities that these kind of institutions afford you.
Yeah,
right?
100%. Yeah, and just to add to that, so when you start out generalist and then you become specialist, when you need specialist knowledge in those other areas, obviously you should go to the specialist. But because you have an idea of what they're doing, you can ask more intelligent, more pointed questions, and you can get the most value out of the specialist. So if you work for a big
and you also can review the work, the reports of the specialists as well. I did a lot of that as an auditor.
That is fantastic, So at Oxford, one of my professors was selling financial analysis and skills. So he's like, the reason why you're learning this is not so that when you go back to your law firms, your clients will then ask you to drop a financial model. That the reason is so that you're better consumers. It's not so that you acquire these skills and become a producer of the model. It's so that you become and to your point, you become a better consumer of the model. Because when then you look at the model, you're not clueless. You know exactly what kind of questions to ask, and that's value, to any employer and to yourself, in general.
Right, it's highly significant because I'll tell you for free, right? For me, yeah, I'm a professional and I'm a businessman, and yeah, I've had a few personal enterprises, and I see how the experience from the Big Four has helped me to even structure my personal businesses, and I'm like, wow, Like you don't know what these insights are,
Indeed.
bro. It's and of course you were at PwC and there's something, we had this professional framework model for praising individuals. So
Mm.
your technical competence,
Yeah.
your business acumen, your whole leadership,
Right.
building relationships, and there's one more thing, I don't know if you can remember.
Oh yeah. You were
And
probably
yeah, and
because
global
you were full
acumen,
time. Yeah.
and the
Right.
global
Right.
acumen, right? So global acumen is more about, working with cross-functional teams. And
Mm.
take that, for example, apply that to these podcasts that I do, right?
Mm.
I am gifted, I have the gift of God, talented at
Mm.
communication, but
Mm. Mm.
I'm not good at graphics and designs, but I was able to recruit a really solid guy,
Right.
yeah, from another country. And,
Mm.
shout out to him. He's doing a really, really great job.
Yeah.
And
I might need the skills very soon.
it will cost you
You
a
know.
finder's fee. It will cost you a finder's fee.
Hey. Hey.
Right. And of course, I do have my PA as well.
What's that friends for?
Okay, no worries.
Hey.
I will give
Hey.
you.
Hey.
Now you catch me. Now you catch me.
Good one.
You
Yeah.
know what would do,
Yeah.
in these institutions, where would you, offshore outsourcing?
Mm-hmm.
You do
Mm-hmm.
it in your personal
Yeah.
work,
No. No. No.
utilizing AI.
Yeah. No. 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 Makes so much sense. And I really, I can relate like
Mhm,
to that point about how these, skills that you acquire on the
mhm,
job can
mhm,
translate
mhm,
into not just like your, business or,
mhm.
like your side quests but also just as an individual, like you just find yourself, you're just more organized, like you want to put things in your diary, like you're,
Yeah,
and you see what I mean? And just in
that's a
general,
project management, right?
egg side of it.
I use Calendly, for example. So I just use the
Mm,
Calendly link, yeah, put it there. So it builds itself up.
yeah,
So the free dates are there already, right? And of
yeah,
course, even from the structure, the tone of our communications, the emails,
yeah.
I'm sure my PA has learned a lot.
Mm,
Because, enforcing that big four standard, on somebody who is not a big four, would I say, professional,
right.
it just builds them.
Indeed, I can imagine that. Yeah, no, like that's completely right, and I think it's why when you listen to a lot of like life coaches, they recommend that don't be in a hurry to leave your 9 to 5, even when
Hmm.
you're starting a business, because
Hmm.
there's so much you can learn that you can then translate into your business. And the most important one is the structure. It's just that
Like structure
professionalism.
is very,
Yeah,
very, very important.
yeah,
Very important. And it's really beautiful. One thing that, gladdens my heart is when sometimes we reach out to high level individuals, high
yeah,
level thought leaders, high level researchers, high level professionals and
yeah,
entrepreneurs, and they have really fantastic feedback.
yeah.
Yeah, it makes you happy.
No, indeed, like it did. So that and there's just so much to learn, from being in a professional or corporate setting that you can translate to like business or your personal life.
Now, you've talked about the experience of, a professional setting, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
of course, your experience, is extensive when it comes to advising financial institutions and governments. But what do you see as the biggest legal challenge or challenges that businesses face in securing funding? Because funding is pretty much the soul or the fuel of any business.
yeah. No, that's a good question. I think the very first one is that, or at least from my experience, advising businesses in like development or rather developing countries, is that one, there is the issue of like mismatch of demand and the supply of funds. So, relatively small businesses may be looking for the smaller check, and then these offshore lenders and like financiers, they're looking to cut a bigger check. So there is that big, issue of like mismatch of like the demand and the supply, because there's money in the world. Like they're just looking for there's more money chasing ideas, and their ideas. Well, some people will disagree, but the truth is, the right ideas, there is money out there for the right ideas. So the problem then, so how are we solving that problem? And our like investment professionals solving that problem. People are trying to like set up wholesale funds. So set up like a vehicle who stands as like the middleman, and there are a number of them on the continent right now. That will then take that big check from the American founders and like investors. So you invest in the fund, and then the fund will then cut the smaller checks to the startups in Nairobi, in Mombasa, and in Cape Town, and in Lagos. So there's that mismatch problem. There's also the problem of a classic problem of doing business.
You can see that again. I can relate to that. Where we come from, Nigeria.
So there's that classic
bottlenecks.
Exactly, and this is I'm speaking of like, which is like my focus. I do a lot of like, by the nature of project finance anyway. By the nature of like project finance, most of the projects will be in developing economies, because that's where you need more roads and more trains and more
infrastructural
schools.
Deficits is prevalent.
So in those types of jurisdictions, like there isn't that. It's not as standardized as like investing in Europe, where these structures have been seen over and over again, and like people hardly even negotiate some of these documents, because and the risk is like very low. But obviously in those emerging economies, it's high risk, and because it's high risk, you also have to like solve for the unknown, and as a result, that also affects the flow of funds, because people are a bit more hesitant to just throw money at you, because they're like, because they're conscious whether they will get that money back. So there's that. And then, so how are people solving for that problem? These development finance institutions are then trying to be on the demand side as well as on the supply side. So if I think that these guys are not giving me a bankable deal, how about you go to them and help them put together a bankable deal? So they're more DFIs, on the continent, and they're doing that type of like, due diligence. You can go to a company, because lenders or buyers can do their own due diligence, but there's what is known as vendors due diligence. So kind of like you due diligence yourself before someone comes and tells you, why is this like? So you do like your housekeeping, and then weed out all the issues, and then you solve it. Or even if you don't solve it, you have an explanation for it. So when the buyer comes, the buyer is doing a more limited due diligence, and then so that's kind of like, if you want to summarize it, there is also that information asymmetry between, and it's because of that.
That is one thing I've been waiting for.
Oh yeah.
Because remember, I still have that first degree from our school in economics, right?
Yes.
And there is something they always talk about, the perfect competition market. And of course, the imperfect market. And of course, the number one characteristic of the imperfect market is that information asymmetry.
Indeed. And because of that, so how do you, and if someone doesn't know, they will have to factor that unknown into their price. So if it's lending, it will be more expensive, because the person wants to get their money back as quickly as possible before things go wrong. Why? Because they know less than they should. But in any case, so there's finance. But these issues are what is like stopping the flow of funds. So if you're advising a client, you're trying to make them investment ready so that the funds can come more easily. Like the investors don't have to think too long and hard about investing because you've shown them, again, you're as transparent as possible. There is less information asymmetry. And even if there is information asymmetry, there is someone who is, they're passing that risk to somebody else. The risk is perfectly mitigated. There is, if they think that like the construction might go left, the contractor has a guarantee behind it that if he doesn't complete this, the parent is going to guarantee whatever deficit. Or if they don't go the route of a parent guarantee, they can go the route of like insurance. So really and truly, if you have very good advisors who have done work in those jurisdictions over and over again, that's the one-stop shop. Once you go to those advisors, they've seen it all.
Yeah,
So they can
able
tell
to help you
you
mitigate the risks, basically,
exactly,
in a nutshell.
exactly. So in a nutshell, so that's absolutely how people, that's what's helping now. So there's so many Nigerian businesses. So I don't think, people talk about lack of access. I think that is so yesterday. It's not the most pressing, issue anymore. As long as you know exactly what the investor's reservation is, so anticipate those issues and give them enough to make them go to bed, knowing that their investment is safe if you're a founder. So you've already done the due diligence on yourself before they ask the question. You know what the answer is. It's like the guy's like, this guy is reading my mind.
Yeah, and of course, that links back to internal audit rules as well.
Yes.
So
Yes.
remember,
Indeed.
I'm an auditor as well. So
Absolutely.
mhm.
Yeah.
So
Because there are all kinds of
yeah.
all kinds. So yes. So more than, and yet to your point, it's not just, and by due diligence, it's not that narrow legal one. It's financial,
Regulatory,
environmental,
ESG,
depending on
environmental,
the sector.
social governance,
Absolutely.
sustainability. It's just a lot. Depending on the kind of industry, the regulators,
Exactly.
and the stakeholders as well.
The
interest of the stakeholders.
No, but that's absolutely right. So, but finance is still an issue to an extent, but it's being solved.
That's a breath of fresh air. I'm definitely not going to have a conversation with you without talking about your Oxford education, right? Oxford exposed you to world-class training in law and finance. But what are some of the biggest differences that you noticed between the Nigerian legal education system and, of course, the global legal systems?
I think the very first one is, there is certainly a structure, like it's the way things are done, and the problem with Nigeria sometimes is that, and this is just factual, some people do things because there are no consequences, of like, if a lecturer missed a lecture or like, everything is done on time. So there is really just that structure because the content is not really, there isn't like a massive difference depending on who the lecturer is, right? It's about the structure of things. It's about the fact that there is first a lecture, and then there is then a kind of like a question and answer, like a session where you have ready-made questions and you mull over those the same. So this is one topic. So there's a lecture, then there is like kind of like an open discussion of sorts. which is number 2. And then there's a tutorial on the same. So it's kind of like, even if you missed it to the first one, you will get it to the second one. And if you miss it in the second one, again, it's just that level of attention, and
Attention to detail.
you see what I mean? You would think that, like, for an institution like that, they would expect the students to be a bit more self-dependent, like it's of course in the lectures, it's a bit it's Socratic, someone isn't just shouting at you, like it's very interactive. But yeah, so that's one. It's the level of like focus and attention, on ensuring that you just don't it's quality over quantity, right? You're not just speeding through, the topics. You're making
So
sure
would
that,
it
like,
actually be right? Sorry to interrupt you because I
right,
am trying to corroborate your point, right? So
right.
would it be right to summarize this point of yours as saying that the efficiency and taking project management aspect of education seriously
Yeah,
on the
indeed.
global
No,
side
no, absolutely.
makes a difference?
It makes a huge difference, So it's, back to like our point in earlier about structure, efficiency, administration. That's a very huge and important part to, quality education anywhere.
Okay.
That knowing that, that assistance is going to be there. That if you add a question, there's that. But then the one thing I would say OAU and my Oxford share in common is the level of difficulty.
Oh yeah, like
I
you
feel like
cannot take that away.
there is, and that's a common characteristic of like any top institution.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because those same topics aren't taught in other universities. It's because of the difficulty of the testing, of the examination. That is why the students have to up their level. So that's what when they say standard, it's about that. So a PhD from Oxford is not different from a PhD anywhere in the UK. But and they have to keep it difficult so that it's like you're calling the students up. You're calling them up to the standard, and saying, listen, the only way you can earn this degree is if you go above and beyond. You see what I mean? So it's that level of like difficulty that, kind of like requires that extra, and that's what still keeps the standard till today. And I would say, in fact, that level of difficulty is more responsible for the standard than the teaching.
Interesting.
See what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that is to a very large extent psychological.
So it's not because the lecturer is going to open your head and put it in it. It's going to teach you, tell you where the answers are. Like, for instance, my corporate finance law course, the reading list alone was over 100 pages. Reading list. And the reading list, textbooks, links, cases. So it's just impossible to be able to consume that much, But the truth is, they're telling you that this is what you need to do to get a distinction in this course. See what I mean? So that is insane. And by then, meeting up that standard, right? The students themselves, have had to meet that standard. And talking about learning, they've given themselves like something that not necessarily Oxford gave them, but Oxford is demanded from them.
Yeah. And they're able to raise the bar to meet the expectation.
And by raising that bar to meet it, that knowledge is then theirs for life. So that when they go out, and you can't take it away, that's the point.
Never.
That's the point about any global institution in a nutshell. Is that they have to keep the standard unreasonably high, and so that the students can up their level and meet that standard. And by meeting that standard, the student gives themselves the kind of competency that makes them succeed in any organization. Full stop.
That's facts. That's facts. Undeniable, unarguable. I like to say you can't argue with facts. Like,
yeah, it's insane.
What was that? But
Yeah.
you're talking about the gaps, right?
Right.
There's usually, a gap between, the academic legal training and not just in legal practice, also
Yeah.
in other fields.
Mm.
So there's usually a gap between, academics and real world practice.
Yeah.
So what are the biggest mindset shifts that young lawyers need to make when entering corporate law and finance?
Yeah. It's a really good question, and there are a number of them. I think the first one for sure is that you need to be on solution oriented, and you need to like search out what is the demand of the job, and the job is not going to require you to. No one is going to ask you a what is question on the job. No one is
Mm-hmm.
going to say, you know, what is the difference between a floating charge and a fixed charge? It will
Mm-hmm.
come up on a transaction, and then so I think first of all there is, and this was from an interview with Elon Musk, believe it or not.
Wow.
He was talking about how what doing education is the way education is structured. It takes a wise student to be able to connect the dots.
Mm.
So they kind of like start from the back. So instead of saying you need to be able to build a house,
Mm-hmm.
in order to build a house, you need to know how to mold bricks and this and that. And then in order to be able to learn how to mold bricks, you need to learn this course in architecture, or you need to be able to structure a transaction. In order to be able to structure a transaction, you need to know how contracts work and what makes a contract impossible. And for you to learn how to make what makes a contract impossible, you need to study contract law. So
Mm.
if you tell students, why is this important? Some people know the cost, but they don't know what's used for. So it's on the job, you're like, oh, so this is why they were teaching us this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because on the job, that knowledge is now come to play. But
And
if
it's practical.
it's practical. So if the teacher kind of like did it, and that's why there should be more practice. I think the disconnect. I know why there's a disconnect. The disconnect is that the people in the classrooms, they've never practiced law one day in their life before.
Exactly.
So they're not able to make those connections for students. So if we did it the other way around, and this is my theory, if someone who is being a badass lawyer, pardon my French, goes back into the classroom, is saying, by the way, like this topic, if you were doing a merger and acquisition, this is how you use this knowledge. So when you get on the job, you already know what to do, So that's the disconnect. That's the biggest disconnect. So now as a student, you need to, every time you're learning, you need to ask yourself that question that, why is this important at every point? Why is this important? Why am I learning this? Well, what do I need this knowledge for? And then you can obviously also ask if that's not, if that's a gap that needs to be filled, then you can speak to mentors who are practicing law and say, I've always been curious, like, how does the knowledge of, securitization come to play in it? This is what I mean. So that those practitioners can help you connect the dots. So that's one, and then two.
Sorry to interrupt you again, right?
No,
Before
no,
you
it's right.
proceed, right? I want to appreciate that very fantastic contribution that you have just made. And you remind me of the business school where I did my MBA. It's called the Augment Business School. And of course, they were
Right.
the very first institution that endorsed this podcast,
Great.
right? So the Augment Business School discovered the same, or would I say, for the sake of repetitiveness, discovered your
Right.
discovery about that disconnect, right?
Yeah.
Between, practice and academic, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of MBAs are taught by professors who have never for one day owned a business. So how are you teaching me about business when you're not a businessman?
Yeah.
So
Very,
these
very
guys,
important.
went to get together real life business people, right?
Yeah.
And formed the curriculum. So the founder of YouTube, Steve Chen, was
Yeah.
a tutor on the program. The founder of
Yeah.
Wikipedia was a
Yeah.
tutor. I think the founder of Waze, Lime, and some top executive from Meta, that's Facebook. They
Yeah.
had like a lot of like top tech startup guys, you
Yeah.
know, collaborate with, academicians, right, to
Yeah.
create the program and now teach that program. And I very, very much appreciate what I was able to learn from that MBA
Yeah.
program. And I feel like
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
it places me in a better position than probably some guys who had to do a lot of rigorous academic
Mm.
work
Yeah.
to
No. No.
become to earn their own
It's
MBA as
important.
well. Because that
No.
disconnect is
No. It's very important.
the
And
side.
yeah. It's incredible how people aren't even mandating it.
Hmm.
I mean, and it's fine because and to be fair to schools, this is the only, I guess, the qualification
Hmm.
of that is that we should not have um, either extremes. So there shouldn't just be business schools where only
Hmm.
people who own businesses should teach, and there shouldn't be law schools where only people who have been lawyers should teach. Because
Yeah, there should
also
be a
you're also
collaboration, a
exactly
handshake between.
you're also training people who want to be researchers.
Hmm.
So and a professor will be in the better position to train someone to be a
Hmm.
person,
Hmm.
but there should be a blend
Yeah.
of both. There should be, so I think it should be more exactly like it should be more collaborative.
Hmm.
There should be a balance of law and practice.
Hmm.
The academia and practice. And I think Oxford managed to do that quite well, at least on the
Wow,
program.
interesting.
So there is a course that is meant to basically just break down how the deal is done. And the people who teach the deals so they would invite actual lawyers and investment practitioners to come down and teach that particular course.
Nice.
While the other courses will be like, obviously taught by lawyers. So you learn the theory and you also learn the practice, which is I
That's
think
a fine
so.
balance.
Yeah, I think that's how it should be done. And then so in addition to that, back to your question on, how do you kind of like bridge that disconnect? As a student or as a young professional, you should also just seek out practical knowledge and skills. So by interning as well
Yeah.
during your undergrad, then you can see for yourself, even if someone isn't showing you, like the theory you've learned in school and then the practice when you go to the law firm. So that also helps you to gain that practical knowledge. More than the practical knowledge, you also need a soft skill. It's obvious, like the students who've worked in a corporate organization before, they know how to interact
Hmm.
better, back to like email etiquette you were just alluding to.
Yeah.
And that
It goes a
just
long
saves
way.
you, it does. It saves you a lot of time and it helps you to hit the ground running from day one
Hmm.
because you've been in that setting before, you know how things are done. You need to be able to gain those insights and experiences and skills just to make it all tie up together.
Mm. Interesting.
Yeah.
So for you, you have written on cryptocurrency
Yeah.
regulations, open banking,
Yeah.
and the secure finance. So
Yeah.
with fintech that is growing rapidly in Africa, so
Mm.
what regulatory trends should startups and investors be aware of in that space?
Yeah. I mean, for sure, right now, I would say around the world, actually, there's a lot of like talks in, say, from the US. And, the thing with like regulation is that when a world power, a very influential country like the US is thinking about regulating cryptocurrency,
Hmm.
then no sooner or later, other countries will follow.
Hmm.
So one big trend right now in cryptocurrency is that the US is starting. Trump is about to
Trump did release his coin, by the way.
is about to is about to set up, and this is using his presidential power to set up a reserve,
Mm,
a US reserve for cryptocurrency, which is
interesting.
insane. So that is like one. That's one of the biggest news out of cryptocurrency right now. that the US is about to, set up a reserve for cryptocurrency. Now, they are not using crypto on the market to set up this. So they're not buying, because if they were buying from the market, the price of crypto would have jumped. But guess what has happened to the price of cryptocurrency? It has dropped or dipped right now because one, the US is using cryptocurrency from the fraud cases where they've seized assets. So that is what they're using to make up the reserve, which is smart, obviously. So they are not paying anyone to setting up the reserve. But the reason why the market is dipping is that people know that those coins are not coming on the market anytime soon. So there will be no demand for that coin. So that
there's
will
no use case, basically.
Exactly. So as a result, because it's like crypto somewhere that is sitting somewhere that no one is buying. So investors are shorting the cryptocurrency. So that's one. The other one is that, so now that is actively setting up a crypto reserve, the next logical line of action is that they may be looking to regulate cryptocurrency. So that's one trend to watch. And if they are looking to regulate it, other countries, like Nigeria inclusive, may be looking to do the same. And in Nigeria right now, there's some regulation around banks, not owning cryptocurrency themselves. They can facilitate transaction, but only to an extent. There are some restrictions around it. But then that's one. The other trend to watch is blockchain itself in general, which is the technology on which cryptocurrency and the rest they work. And the use case, speaking about use cases for blockchain, is the immutability of the blockchain. It's the fact that you can't change or amend it.
Yeah, you can't alter the ledger transactions. Yeah,
exactly. And because you can't, that's kind of helps to solve a big problem in emerging economies where I work, which
transparency
is and trust, right? So because of that lack of transparency and trust, so people are thinking about creative ways to use blockchain in their processes. It's interesting. People don't really know about this, but like the Nigerian government uses like like blockchain in the ports right now. So which kind of like manages like the processes and that means when value moves from one place, you can monitor it, and at the same time, you also know that it can be altered, and there is just that transparency that someone isn't moved some part of the money, those type of issues, to themselves, and it's being used in procurement, it's being used in all kinds. So that's a trend to watch, the use cases for it. Then obviously there is, how are we talking about tech trends without talking about artificial intelligence, right? So
AI, is so dear to my heart.
So there is a big adoption. There's a big adoption for AI right now. In all law, eventually in every aspect of like our lives right now, there's a huge AI adoption, and the people are thinking about more. But also there's within that sector there is a big push for efficiency, because there's a competition between China and the US, and as a result, it's not just enough that this product exists. This product, they need to improve them so that they are so efficient that just anyone can afford to use. So there's that efficiency war going on between China, because China is saying they can do so much more with less, and that's forcing the AI producers in the US to try and be more efficient as well.
Yeah.
So those are, I think, the major trends in that space right now.
Because man, China's making everybody sit up.
Oh yes, indeed.
They enjoy the economies of scale, and that's what I say. They have some knowledge, right? That they're able to successfully keep the integrity of. They have like good intellectual property.
Yeah. And economies of scale, there's a ready
Yeah,
market.
yeah.
Exactly. So
That
even
that
if
is difficult to fight.
exactly, so even if the rest of the world wasn't buying Chinese product, China has a big enough
Mm-hmm.
market that can consume first of all locally,
Mm-hmm.
but also they can export, outside of China if you're not caught by sanctions and the rest of it. But anyway, that's a big one. But you're right, China is definitely making the rest of the world sit up.
When
Yeah,
China sneezes, the rest of the world shivers.
you know.
But
Uh,
then, being from Africa, and speaking of Africa, so
yeah,
the energy and infrastructure needs are
yeah.
vast. So, like, what legal and financial strategies can African governments adopt to attract more sustainable investment in these important sectors?
I mean, can you take that again? What?
Energy,
Yeah.
right? And infrastructure. So we have,
Mm-hmm.
this endemic infrastructure deficit
Yeah. Yeah.
in Africa. So
Yeah.
you would probably know one or two legal and financial strategies that
Yeah.
the African governments can adopt to attract more sustainable investments in these sectors.
Oh yeah, no, indeed. And I think the biggest one is something like legal strategies is concessions.
Mm.
So a concession is a public, in other words, like a
Public-private
public-private,
partnership?
exactly. So and I mean, if the government feels like they cannot run these sectors efficiently, they can employ, and this is also to say that this is already happening.
Yeah, it's happening
The
in the power
government,
sector, for example, in
or
Nigeria.
exactly. So
Mhm.
there is a lot of impact in the power sector. There is even more privatization than there is public-private partnership. But for other infrastructure like roads, there is a lot more. And to give Nigeria some credit, there are some interesting structures that are coming up.
Mm.
For instance, there is a road investment tax credit scheme that the government came up with. That if you're a big corporation in Nigeria,
Mhm.
you can choose to construct a road with your own revenue,
Mhm.
and then you can claim those expenses off your balance
Mhm.
sheet as a tax credit. So you know what they've done? So the government has achieved two things. They've admitted that we are very inefficient.
Mhm.
We want this road to be constructed. So the government is saying if we did this ourselves, we may not get the best result.
Mm.
We've been trying to construct Lagos Ibadan for the past 10 years. But
No,
if an
decades,
decade
decades.
but if an MTN, because the MTN is going to get it done because they need to claim that tax credit by the end of the year. So they don't care how
Mhm.
the contractors do it, they will get it done. So if you put it in the hands of a private company, and that's exactly what Dangote has done is constructed the road, claimed
Mhm.
the tax credit. There's also beyond, that financial gain. There is also that goodwill that you get from the
Mhm.
local community, where you
Exactly.
created that access. So they're doing that. That's one strategy that can be used, to plug that deficit. Private-public partnerships is one, but in addition to that, the government should also try and streamline the processes of licensing regimes and the competition
Bureau
of,
cases,
and
bottlenecks.
exactly what's
Oh,
that thing like multiple taxation, ta-
yeah.
those type of issues, over regulation.
Hmm.
Those are ways that government can attract more invest. One other way is because people then invest all this money and they can't take their dollars out of the country.
Yeah, repatriation is a very, very big issue.
So the government also
The
needs to.
restrictions.
So sometimes it's what you call a Hydra edit problem.
Mm.
It's not just that sector alone that has the
Hmm.
issue. There are all these other factors
Yeah,
around it
yeah, there are
that
ripple
you so
effects crossbar.
that would exactly. So even if someone were a power developer and they were happy to come and build a power plant in Maiduguri or somewhere, they're discouraged by the fact that they can't take their investment out. So they've built and completed this plan. So what's the point? We're not a charity. We need to make a profit and be able to repatriate the profit. So it's fixing the direct issues affecting the sector, but also fixing the indirect issues around the sector. I think once you can do all of that, then it's more like, it's a home run, from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do believe the last point you made, regarding the repatriation issues, that would discourage FDI, the inflow of FDI.
Exactly.
And that is not good for your development.
And that's where most of the funds are coming from. Like, the local banks, obviously don't have that deep enough, like a purse. And the other feature of project finance as opposed to corporate finance is the length of the financing, the long-term nature of the financing. So if you're financing a project, you have to be willing to tie up capital for 20 years or more. And I don't think there's any bank that wants to just tie up, billions of dollars in, or that they even have that. They don't have billions of dollars sitting anywhere. I mean, the local banks. So by the very nature of project financing in Nigeria, and the fact that the equipment are not going to be local, you will have to import them. So that means, long story short, 90%, if not 100% of the investment will have to come from abroad, right? So, and if it's coming from abroad, then repatriation is a big issue,
Massive.
So exactly, yeah. So that's indeed, that's a big issue.
Wow,
Yeah.
interesting stuff. I'm proud of you, by the way, and of course,
proud of you too, bro.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
And of course, the impressive career, you've built, but also you taking that unselfish pathway of mentoring, younger professionals. So, what drives your passion for empowering the next generation?
It's a lot of things. I think the very first one is just that self-inflicted obligation that I should pass it down. You know how what do people say? I'm a product of other people's kindness.
Benevolence, generosity.
Indeed. So I feel almost obligated.
Pay forward.
To pay forward, indeed. So there's no way I would be. It just feels like the right thing to do. So I mean, so that's one. That's what I feel like I almost owe that the next generation that obligation. Because if someone also just decided to stop it, on their desk or at their level and didn't pay forward as well, I also wouldn't have benefited so much. And sometimes it's not also, like I say, it's not direct mentoring. Sometimes just the way you live your life can inspire a lot more people than you're able to reach directly. So
I have a quote from a PwC partner I used to work with that corroborates that, and I love to tell people at any opportunity, what is important is not the example of your power,
right,
but the power of your example. You
very
that.
Powerful stuff. Yeah, no, because and it goes to corporate parenting, because people they gain more from the things you do. It's not even what you say. Because people out there saying all kinds of stuff.
I'm telling you, I don't want to go there at all. Social media is a minefield with corrupted, valueless information. And I feel sorry for the upcoming generation.
No. So it's and you can say all kinds of stuff, but people actually want to take, obviously, they we want to draw inspiration from one, your results, for examples, your values, and there's that, just knowing that, like, if you have a platform, you almost have a responsibility to use it correctly, because you don't have a choice. Someone is always watching, your example, right? So that's very important, and
Sage, you know something?
yeah.
This is another situation of you sharing like minds, right? And of course, not just sharing like minds, but using, would I say, like words as well. I did make a comment on a certain Instagram post from a certain podcast hosted by he that shall not be named. So these people, these so-called individuals, were talking about, okay, give a hint. They are Nigerian, UK-based podcasters, right?
I see. Yeah.
And unfortunately, they are my age mates. They are 32 years old, right?
I see.
And she was talking about, in comparing UK men and Nigerian men, saying if you go to the club in Nigeria, a guy can take you and 6 of your friends to the club and pay for everything. Like, in the UK, 6 boys are contributing money to be on one table, blah blah blah. UK guys don't have spending power. I'm like, okay, do you want me to read out the comment I made on this post?
No, happy. Yeah, happy. Why not?
Right now, I said, what value does convo like this offer to your audience? Sad to see well-articulated, well-dressed, and good-looking young people like these voicing thoughtless points in front of a port mic. You are better than this and can do better. Convos like this have helped build low-value females with entitlement mentalities roaming around with no sense of direction or purpose in life, and they feel like nonsense makes sense. What happened to empowering yourselves and not leeching on men to pay your bills and finance your fake lifestyles? Skill up and start investing in your youthful years. And I am very big on the fact that for those of us who own platforms, especially public platforms, we owe a very, very massive responsibility
to your audience,
to your audience,
yeah,
to your audience, to educate them, not to misinform them, right? And of course, these same guys, they that shall not be named, right? They made a misinforming post, also I think about 2 weeks ago, stating that Nigerian men have a mortality rate of 52 years old. I'm like, okay, excuse me, what is mortality rate? Right. Like, you're trying to make jest of certain individuals or try to make a joke, right? But you can't even get the what do you call it now?
facts, right?
The facts right. You can't even get the medical index you're trying to quote right. You're trying to talk about life expectancy,
Right?
not mortality rate.
Mortality rate.
And then I dropped a comment stating mortality rate actually refers to the measure of the number of deaths in general or due to a specific cause in a particular population, scaled to the size of that population per unit of time. You actually meant life expectancy. Please get your facts right before jumping on a port mic to misinform the public. Stop the cap. And guess what? There was this individual, I don't know, with some, what do you call, private account, and came to tell me, rest, I beg. I'm like, excuse me? In my head, I'm like, is this person serious? Like, if only you had probably just gone to take a sneak peek at my profile, you probably wouldn't even. So I just, responded politely. I said, I am well rested, thank you. And of course, somebody responded, you are absolutely right. I see someone in comments saying rest. This is why a lot of people don't learn in Nigeria, or because their favorite is on the show, right? You can see the kind of social media army we are building.
Yeah.
And of course, this
Yeah.
person responded, right?
Yeah.
And another person was even like, he did not even tag you, right? Would you prefer the misinformation, right?
Yeah. No, it's important. It's crazy actually because
It's really,
that
really,
you
really
that you
crazy.
use your platform well. But yeah, no. But that's important. Just because
Sad.
yeah,
Really,
no.
really sad.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
don't know. Is there a more severe word for sad? So
Yeah.
I can use
So
that.
yeah, I'm actually conscious because I'm going to meeting at 3 p.m. But yeah, no, but
Okay,
like
yeah. So
yeah,
we
yeah,
would be rounding off right now.
yeah,
So
right.
like your passion for, the younger generation of professionals, for me,
Mhm.
is something that I very, very, very much admire. Aside from admiring it, I appreciate it
Yeah.
because we have a strong responsibility to ensure that, we pay it forward. Definitely, we are, can I say, beneficiaries, right, of those that came before us, and
Yeah.
we have to give it. We have to pay forward. So we will be ending with something I call a quick fire round. Are you ready? So you're
Let's
just
go.
gonna give quick answers as brief as possible,
Yeah.
brief and insightful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so number one is one word that describes your career journey. Just one word.
That described my career journey. I
I
would
know
say,
you probably want like three words.
inspiring.
Inspiring. I love that.
Yeah.
You see,
Uh,
that's the thing with lawyers. They're
I'm
men
like,
of
yeah,
letters.
the
They like
one
many
word,
words.
one word. It's crazy. I think one word will be
Two more.
two more words. So I'll say for sure it would be yeah. I mean, inspiring experience. How do you
I have one word for you.
right? No, tell me.
Let me donate one word, and I think it's been inspiring. It's actually been adventurous as well. Yeah,
Indeed, but I mean, some
and
people would disagree, but then I mean, because I've always done law, but yeah, no, but the point will be that oh, maybe ambitious,
and I have two more words for you.
ambitious.
I'm sorry.
Go on. Yeah.
Okay. So let's construct it into five, right? So you said inspiring. You said, what did I say? I forgot what I said. But you said
Mhm.
inspiring, right? And I said adventurous. Yeah, I recollect. I said adventurous,
Audacious, maybe.
but I think two more words I'm going to put in
Mhm.
there: challenging but rewarding.
Yeah, indeed,
Mhm.
for sure, challenging but rewarding for sure. Yeah,
Are you fine with
yeah.
that?
Oh yeah, no, challenging but rewarding for sure. I mean, which is like I hope every profession out there. So your work should be, I will say my career so far also has been impactful.
Yeah, very
You
much
know,
so.
impactful on me, on like on people around me. So yes, impactful.
Mhm.
For sure. It's been impactful on just all round aspects. We were talking about it earlier, but yeah, like we can speed up, we can do so. Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
so number two, biggest legal misconception in fintech. Just
The
the
other thing
biggest one.
is that fintech is about banks only. The biggest misconception is that fintechs are limited to online banks payments
Mm-hmm.
because
Payment
that's
solutions, yeah. Yeah, people think that a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. But
Okay.
that's the biggest one. But obviously, it's it's using technology to deliver financial services, and that will go beyond
Mm-hmm.
payment. So that banking, insurance,
Mm-hmm.
like yeah, all kinds
Or financial
of
services, basically.
in
Yeah, and,
general.
and,
Yeah,
and yeah, they're wide, actually.
yeah.
Okay, next one. What's the book that impacted your legal career the most?
My legal career, I would say just life in general. I was impacted by Nelson Mandela's A Long Walk to
Long
Freedom.
Walk to
It's
Freedom. I
random.
love that. I want to quote it. A long walk to freedom.
I actually found it, just his journey in
Yeah, inspiration
general.
for generations.
Yes, yeah. Almost.
Wow, nice choice. So,
Yeah.
number 4, what's your preferred method of relaxation after a busy week?
It's crazy. It's YouTube. Watch it. I love like vocal competition, singing competition. I love like, talent reality TV show. I love talented people. I mean, my side quests, when I've got like some fun I mean,
To
not
play
necessarily
around with.
like exactly that, because it would be maybe only like a record label. I just love music so much that I would love, to do something in that
Wow,
space.
another truth with what Supreme said. I'm a sucker for music. I love music.
Yeah,
For me,
love it.
music is a
Love it.
food to the soul. So another connection point. So
Yeah.
number 5, one habit that has significantly boosted your career growth. What habit would that be?
Significantly boosted my career
Mm-hmm.
growth would be seeking out knowledge, like just always learning. And we spoke about it. I think
Mm-hmm.
being the one with answers will always make you a favorite. Like, just
Mm-hmm.
being knowledgeable about things, for sure. So learning is one habit that has helped me. And then the other thing is like being very, proactive in general,
You read my mind,
yeah,
because for me, that was what
yeah,
I was expecting you to say. That's number
yeah,
1, because
yeah,
knowing you
yeah,
over the years, I would
yeah,
say you are actually a very proactive individual,
yeah,
and of course you think ahead in order to stay
yeah,
ahead. Yeah, and
yeah.
actually that has I've
Uh,
observed that has helped you a lot.
and I must add, taking ownership,
Mm-hmm.
just not just there to earn a salary.
Mm-hmm.
If once you start um taking the business like your
Of
role,
your own, yeah.
yeah, yeah, then it just makes a huge difference.
Okay, so the very last question is, what is an essential skill every young lawyer should master?
Speed.
Mm, interesting. Uh, Wow. And of course, with that, we have come to the end of this very long but educative and inspiring, insightful. Give me any positive adjective, right? And stamp it on it. uh,
It's
and
been an eye opener. It's been eye opening. It's been, I guess, adventurous. Like there's been a broad range of like topic covered. I think, and I think it's also been authentic.
exactly,
In
very,
the
very true.
in the sense that like, and well, as opposed to what, to be honest, like my approach is always raw,
Yeah,
like
be yourself. Yeah.
yeah, and like keeping it buck, like just keeping
Mm.
it like as clear, as real as possible, because there are people who think that like they love like their dreams are not like
Mm-hmm.
very achievable, but
Mm-hmm.
then like just knowing that like someone who looks like you, talks like you, has done the same thing just gives you the audacity to dream
Yeah.
and to know that it's possible. So and but yeah, indeed, and I'm always very happy to like share
Mm-hmm.
my knowledge, because I know that like that just gives someone speed,
Mm-hmm.
like, because when they say experience is the best teacher, doesn't mean you have to make it all by yourself.
Yeah.
You can learn from the
Stand on the
errors,
shoulders of others.
exactly, of giants. And like once you learn from like, and yeah, just if we didn't talk about this, mentoring is very important. What a mentor does is that at the end of their journey,
Mm.
they give you like a blueprint
Mm-hmm.
which gives you speed.
Mm-hmm.
It just helps you to like avoid some
Unnecessary
easily,
pitholes, pitfalls.
exactly, that like you can. And what that means is that you can then, at the start of your journey, you're taking all the wisdom someone has learned over the years,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're
For free.
building on that,
Mm.
and that gives you speed, which is
Mm.
important. Yeah.
Wow. That is actually highly, highly insightful. And from me to you, it is a very, very big thank you because you shared your time here on the
Yeah,
podcast today. If someone shares their time with you, they have shared their life with you because the unit of measurement of life is time. So,
indeed.
my brother,
Yeah.
God bless you. And of course, are you going to leave a shout out to anybody before you leave?
I think just in general, man, shout out to you, first of all. You're doing an amazing job,
Thank you very much, brother.
and it's the consistency, the drive is amazing. As I also have like a podcast, which is making like a comeback and the rest of it. I'm just seeing what you're doing, man. It's just inspiring.
Thank you
I'm
very
just
much.
in,
It means a lot to me,
no,
especially
big
coming
time,
from you.
no, big time, big time. Yeah,
Wow, wow, thank you very much.
well
And of
done.
course, for me, I think a very big shout out to Supreme. Yeah, Barrister
Hey,
Supreme.
big time,
Uh yeah,
big
big shout
time.
out to you. Big shout out
Yeah,
to all OAU
yeah.
alumni members.
Hey,
Yeah. And of course, big
well done.
shout out to XPWC guys because that's an institution we also share in
In common,
common. And
right?
of course, big shout out to the audience, right? If you
Yeah,
guys have watched up until now, thank you very much. We appreciate you. We don't take your time for granted. And of course, I promise to keep, on in line with, Sage's, observation, being consistent and being
mhm,
persistent at producing, more quality content, higher quality conversations,
yeah,
high quality guests. And of course, there is something coming up in the next episode. Interesting
big time.
guest. So the stage is a build up to another stage.
Come on, come on, come on, come
So
on,
the stage has set the stage.
come on. I
Wait
love
for
it.
it.
I
So
love it. Yeah,
subscribe, like, share
happy
with
to
your
be here.
friends, your family, your foes, your village people. Who should they share with?
Everyone, man, your enemies.
Everybody.
So you said friends and foes, indeed.
Yeah, and of course, yeah, share with your exes as well.
Hey, yeah, yeah, big time. Yeah, no,
Okay, from
happy,
us, it
happy.
is, it is,
Yeah,
yeah, it is by love and respect, and of
thanks,
course,
man. All right.